First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. This artist talk is part of the Canadian Art Hop Weekend, where we'll be having an artist talk with Barbara Cole, and then later today, Ted Fullerton at 2:30, so if you're in the area. But I guess first things first is we're surrounded by this beautiful body of work, sort of a small collection of Second Glance by Canadian photographer Barbara Cole. I was wondering if you could start us off by, some people who may not have been to one of your artist talk before, you could give them a bit of a backstory about, how you got into photography and how that sort of directed your artistic career.
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for coming Saturday morning when I know you could be doing groceries or sleeping in. I appreciate it. So my story is kind of interesting because I dropped out of high school. I had depression. Now I know it was ADD. I just couldn't take in the information on the written page. And looking for something to do and waiting to figure out what was next, I kind of spent the year just playing around. So I was modeling, and one person I modeled for was Joan Sutton at the Toronto Sun, and she was the fashion editor. The Sun had just begun about 3 months prior to that, so it wasn't unionized, and anybody could be anything. So at 17, I became the fashion writer at the Toronto Sun with no training, which was quite interesting. It's kind of how I've lived all my life. I just kind of have to jump in and figure it out. So that's what I did. And I stayed there as a fashion writer, editor, and photographer for 10 years. And then I decided to move on, but it was such a great training ground. I learned how to take pictures. The darkroom people the photographers were fantastic, and they liked my eye, so they got me some cameras to try, and I spent some time in the darkroom learning to print and process film, and then I was away to the races. I'd found my thing. By the way, when I was at school, my vocational testing told me I should be a librarian.
Oh.
So thank God I dropped out. So that's what I did. And then I just was very influenced by the magazines in the 60s, and this was 1969, 1970 when I was taken on at the Sun.
Yeah.
And I started, and we did weekly fashion spreads that I could just play with, create. What was the trend? Where did I want to shoot it? Pick a model. What's the wardrobe? And that's basically what I do to this day. I mean, look at these. It's all influenced. But the turning point in that journey was seeing Sarah Moon's work. And I don't know if any of you know her, but I don't know her personally, but she gave me this most incredible opportunity to see photography as a painting. And I thought, wow, I just got to do that. And that's what I've been doing all of my life. I love to shoot pictures using photography, but I try as hard as I can to make them look non-photographic.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good segue into, Second Glance. Maybe you could tell us a bit about this specific body of work.
Well, this also, goes back to that time, because I learned photography in a time of film. Mm-hmm. And cameras and, in a different sense. Like, for example, for the last 24 years, I've been buying cameras. Oops. Is that okay?
Oh, that's okay.
Do I need it?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Carry on. Keeps falling out of my ear.
Oh,
I have a small ear. Like, I buy cameras that I don't know, but I've heard about online, and I want to figure out how they work. You know, like it's very, everyone goes, this is so cool, right? And I go, this is so cool, but like, what does it do? And so, for example, with these pictures, it harkens back to the earliest form of photography, wet collodion, ambrotypes and tintypes. And I spent 14 years trying to figure out, I thought it was good. This is the thing, I always think it's going to be quick and easy, right? And it never is. It's always really hard. And so this is a process where you make your own film and everything else, but you're not just processing darkroom film, you're actually making it yourself. And it takes a lot of prep time, and you have to be precise. So your formulas for fixer, developer, film, silver bath, everything has to be in perfect working order, or your picture won't come out. So that was 14 years. Every shoot, I do tests and tests and tests, and then on the day of the shoot, something crazy happened, and it didn't work out. Like, I'd say 2 out of 3 shoots did not work out. And at the same time, I wouldn't stop because I wanted to explore, in this case, it was a 4x5 or an 8x10 camera. You know, the kind that you put a black cloth over your head and you look through the screen and everything's upside down and backwards. And I just wanted to know how to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's photography. It's what I love. And it's the pictures that I grew up with were done by, you know, Cortez and people of that ilk who knew how to use these things.
Yeah.
And I just was fascinated.
Yeah, and your work is very much about storytelling.
Yeah.
So what's the story you're trying to tell here?
That people are made up of more than one thing, and that first impressions are very misleading. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted a way, so I wanted a chance to just show that person in a different light. So if you're looking at one side, one picture, you form a quick impression. Yeah. And you go, this is that person. But then you look at the other side, and maybe it softens or changes your impression. And, you know, they should combine and overlap because they are the same person made up of multiple traits. Mm-hmm. And I think in this day and age, we're so quick to judge people harshly, immediately, and unforgivingly. And I just want people to linger on these images and, you know, make up their own mind slowly. Yeah. You know?
And you were very purposeful, I can see, about, you know, using black and white and color. Mm-hmm. What was the sort of thought process that went behind that?
My work has, since 1982, when I began, always been about color. Either I hand-colored a black and white photograph, or I used Polaroid film and manipulated that to look like a painting, but always color. And I didn't realize it at the time, but this was my first step. This and shadow dancing, which was just prior to this show, was my first step away from color. But I was doing it all in black and white, and I hadn't yet gotten to that point where I liked the picture as a black and white. So I had to use color, and again, this is film. Yeah. This is 8x10 or 4x5 color film. And you can do it easily because you have this 8x10, you know, view camera, and you have to put an individual sheet of film in order to expose it. So you do an individual sheet of black and white, the wet collodion, and then the color. So then, after this work, I've done an entire show in black and white using this camera underwater, and that's coming up in the fall. Yeah. And then after that, the show I'm currently working on is completely black and white digital. So I mean, every time I do a show, I need this challenge, I think. I just need to make it different and make it special and explore what the realm of photography has to offer. Right. It's not just a phone, you know, as a picture. It's not just, when I got my digital camera, I had upgraded after 15 years, so it's a very good digital camera. And I hadn't even read the instruction booklet. And it was shockingly horrifying to me that my first 2 pictures could be perfectly gorgeous on auto. And that's what I try to avoid in everything that I do. But
is that one of the reasons why you return to analog? You sort of look at these historical types of photography, such as what collodion, ambrotypes, because there is that sort of, there's a mystery to what you're going to get?
Well, yes and no. That's true. I want to figure out how they did what they did with their camera. But also, that was a very magical time for me in my own life. And so I think part of it is that I'm going back to a place that was very happy for me, exploring cameras and processes. And I have 2 dark rooms in my house. I mean, I find that I need the challenge, but I also think it takes me to the magical part of what is photography, that, wow, I can't believe I got an image out of this.
Yeah.
It develops up slowly, or you don't see it immediately. You have to wait and get the film back and look at it. And how do you feel then, you know? And you don't have a million people looking around, looking on your computer screen, running in to do things that you didn't want fixed, It's like a very private type of photography. Same with underwater. Nobody's there with you, right? It's very, very private. You're underwater with the model, and the 2 of you are creating a bond, and nobody knows what I see. And it's very rare in this day and age.
Yeah, to have that level of privacy.
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons why I go back. And there's also this true sense of appreciation for how hard it was for those people, early photographers, to actually get not only a working image, but a fabulous, beautiful, magical image.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not like, a new camera on auto, frames 1 and 2, perfection, It's really different than that. And that's the challenge, and that's the struggle, and I'm attracted to the struggle. I want it to be hard.
Yeah. And what was the most important thing, do you think, that you learned with this body of work?
Honestly?
Yeah. Please. Yes. We welcome honesty.
That I think
the work is very honest, so.
I loved it while I was doing it, but it was too slow for me.
Oh.
I found that wet collodion took way too much out of me. I achieved perfection for me with this show, and in perfection, I found that it wasn't going where I needed it to go.
Right.
I love it, but it's different than what I'm shooting now, as you'll see in time.
Yeah.
It became a very technical exercise instead of pure exploration. You've got a very heavy camera, you can't really move it around to get a different angle. When you shoot the picture, the model has to stay still for up to 13 seconds. So there's nothing really spontaneous about it. You're processing the film while they're waiting. So I found that while I went into my dark box to process or sensitize my film, everyone was talking about the latest movie. We'd lost the moment. And I had, my assistants knew to keep them in the moment.
Yeah.
But I'd come out of this dark box, and I'd look at it like, Moses coming down from the mountain, like, what are all these people doing?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be, involved in my process.
And we got to do this over again.
And they're just talking about where they went for dinner. So there are a lot of reasons, why I switched. But really, I wanted more spontaneity, and I had understood this process.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I could trust that the shoot would go as planned. And
that's a pretty rare thing to say.
Yeah, and I guess then some of the magic disappeared, and I needed to pursue something else. And it shocked me because I was shooting in the summer underwater without any thought of not doing this for the rest of my life. And then in the fall, I sat my assistant down. We've been working together for over 25 years now, and I said, shockingly, this is what I'd like to achieve. Can it be done with wet collodion, or do I have to do something else?
What did he say?
Well, everybody was so relieved because they saw my struggle and they didn't want to tell me not to pursue it, but they were hoping that I'd come to my senses, you know,
Yeah.
but I never did. My assistant said, you're very resilient. But we talked about it a couple of times and realized that it probably wasn't doable. And so then the next stage of the next show was this.
Right.
I was going to use this camera, and the film is 12 frames. So, you know, you have 12 frames of film to get what I wanted. And I ended up shooting a lot of film, but what I want is never straightforward. You know, I wanted the perfect blend of blur and stillness. And so I found that maybe I'd get one frame I liked but didn't love after I'd processed 2 or 3 films, like rolls. And so then I thought, well, my experience with alternative processes taught me, like, don't put a square thing into a round hole.
Yeah.
What is it you want to do, and how are you going to do it,
Yeah.
right? So I shocked myself, and I bought that digital camera because the film was very expensive and I wasn't getting what I wanted. And it was another new learning curve, you know, because how the hell do you use a digital camera?
Yeah.
It was foreign to me. But it's been a relief and a pleasure because I am speaking my language. I am visualizing something, and it's also coming out the way I hoped it would, which is
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah. And going back to the black and white and the color, I know for shadow dancing you sort of did an overlay of the black and white and the color. Sort of.
Yes,
that.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I wanted the same image to be duplicated in color. And so I tried to get them to hold still for 13 seconds, and then I'd change my film and hold still again. It was full body, and they were standing. So, of course, they moved, and I shot it in color, and then I'd have to use puppet warp in Photoshop to get the nose in the same place. Otherwise, they'd have 4 eyes and 20 fingers, and so that was difficult, but worth it, because I wanted you to look through the color image, see it as I saw it in real time,
Yeah.
look through the color image to the black and white. So what I did in shadow dancing, which is the show just before this, is the color image would be printed, back mounted on plexi. So the actual cover of the picture was the color image faded back on plexiglass, and you'd look through it to the wet collodion black and white image. And that would be in the back, and there's a space between the two. So you see it, that's how I wanted you to see it as I see it through the camera. So it's a big black box, and I look through and I'm actually looking at color. Whether it's black and white film I'm shooting or color film, it's all color. And then I wanted to put it together in a way that would, you know, kind of feel dimensional. And also with this type of photography, because it's a long exposure, I really do believe that people's souls come through, you know, because it's not just an instant. They have to actually, their eyes shift during the exposure, you know, and you just get a deeper sense of who they are. So with this, moving along, I thought, well, what I want to do here is same idea, but I don't want to cover the image totally. I want it overlapping. And do I do it in color and black and white, or black and white and black and white? So this one here is printed, the black and white image is printed on the plexiglass, and it's overlapping the tintype behind it that is digitized, so I could make it any size I want. And so I'm kind of not obscuring either image as much.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, all of it is in an effort to make you really see the picture, like really take your time to look at it.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just look at quickly and get. You have to spend some time with it.
Yeah, you have the benefit of working with 2 images in one, so you can really reinforce and tell
two
that story.
processes, like
Yeah.
one is wet collodion, and with the edges and the, you know, the little squiggles and things that happen on it, and the other is pure film. So there, you know, it's just a whole different thing. It's a hybrid. I do hybrids a lot, yeah.
Well, you bring, you know, because you work on bodies of work for such extensive periods of time, you do bring elements that come before it into it.
Yeah, always. One thing comes out of the other. Like,
Yeah.
although I change it up, one thing, what I'm doing last influences what I do next, of course.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And was it a conscious choice to have the color on the right and the black and white on the left?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that bother you?
No, I was just wondering if there was.
No, because I'm a lefty, and it just felt
Oh, you're
right.
left-handed?
Yeah.
Oh, so am I.
Okay, so there you go.
There you go.
But I think that it's the handedness that made me need the right side to have color.
Interesting.
I didn't know you were a lefty.
Yeah. There
you go.
I'm gonna see you every day.
So that's it. It felt natural to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the reason why.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And I guess from, you know, with this body of work in mind, and you sort of hinted on what you're doing next, what are you bringing into that body of work from Second Glance?
I guess animation. I just needed the pictures to not be still.
Right.
I was tired of a space and time that just didn't move. Mm-hmm. And these next pictures are extremely animated. The next show is called Impermanence because it's the moving between one moment in time to the next moment in time. Mm. And Whispers, which I'm working on currently, same idea, much more so even than Impermanence, expresses you know, that sense of a thought more than a person. Mm. It's like you get a feeling from the picture more than you get a sense of the parts.
Yeah.
You know, you look at it and you get immersed into the action.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just moving forward.
Yeah. No, we're really excited. Impermanence will be on display in the fall, which is going to be highlighted at Art Toronto as well.
Yeah.
Which is going to be exciting.
And we're just deciding now how to frame it because it was very, very important to me to have the film rebate showing. The rebate is the edge of the black and white film that says, you know, Ilford, 400 ASA, frame number 12, whatever. And I framed one and I don't know yet. So I just feel like it's very authentic to see the film as the entirety.
Yeah.
But is it distracting? So I'm just like, I have time to decide.
Yeah, I think it's really nice when you do see, you know, from working with a little maquette and then scaling up, it really can change your perspective.
Yeah, and putting it on the wall is, you know, will people be able to live with this, or will they want you to reframe it, you know, if I keep the rebate? So I don't know, we'll see.
And I guess take the opportunity, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask to Barbara?
I have a question.
Yeah, great.
So you talked a lot about like perfection in your process and how you're trying to like achieve that, but how much of your process do you think like benefits from like leaving space for spontaneity and kind of creating that space to think of how these two images maybe can kind of play against each other?
Okay, so the question is, I guess, if I've heard you right, do I value spontaneity over planning?
Correct.
Right? I plan my pictures a great deal. But it is my personality that when I'm shooting, I'm so joyful. I just forget about the planning is there, and let's see what we get, right? I forget all about the planning. Those are the elements that come to the shoot, and then I'm having so much fun that whatever happens, happens, you know, hopefully good. But yeah, so I think you need both parts, especially because I'm telling a story. So, and I use a figure. So you have to have an idea in advance of who that figure is, how are you going to dress her, what's her makeup like, what's her hair like, what props will you want to have on hand, what is she wearing, does she need shoes, no shoes, is the color right for her, what's the backdrop. I've always been, since the very first series, always been influenced by the place. And in the beginning, and it all starts with the place. And I used to go around with all my equipment and find little places in Toronto that had like a lovely feeling, and then I'd, you know, try and get permission to shoot there and then shoot there. And now, for the last umpteen years, like I'd say 35 years, the place comes first. I either have a background painted for me, or I find a picture I like and then with a retoucher change it somewhat to make it really
unique,
inspiring for me. Like I have to know that woman is in that place, and I shoot it in a way that needs to be seamless. So that person, and I say to the subject, to the model, the figure, I say, this is your home today. Ignore all of us on this side, take a good look at where you are, and just get into it. You know, I'm only going to say something to give you a, you know, your where you should stay on the backdrop. But other than that, stay in your head. Which to be completely honest, I do talk a lot during the shoot, so I don't keep my word. I do actually say a lot. But that's the general idea. I hope that stays with the model, is that ignore me and just live in this world I've created. So it starts with the background, and then it goes on to what she's wearing, what she looks like, and what the reason for her to be there.
Yeah.
Like, why is she standing on a street that looks a little wet at night in this outfit? Like, what's the backstory?
Yeah.
And that's what gives me the success. Is
and
that
you're submersing yourself in the world that you're creating, that you're trying to create.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, yes, I do a lot of preparation so that I can be spontaneous on the day of the shoot.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you select your models for the project?
I found, well, a lot of different places. Successfully, I love this agency called Niwa because they understand artists, and they will give me a girl who's willing to do something creative, even though she may be fantastic and get $2,000 a day rate. That's very unusual. Most agents, you know, it's very frustrating because I've been shooting for close to 45 years. These agents have been agents for 2.5 seconds, and they give me girls who have no experience. And, you know, I feel it's disrespectful. But anyways, that's a whole other thing.
That's another thing.
But I also shoot with dancers. It depends on the shoot. If I need a strong underwater model, I'll usually go with a dancer. And lately I've been going on Instagram, and I found this person, Ada Ho, Bend Not Break, and she's very graceful. And I met with her, and we used her on the last shoot. So I don't really go with, but I'm picky, you know, because there's so much money involved. Everyone gets paid when I shoot with them, and they're sometimes not happy with the amount they get, but everyone gets paid what I feel I can afford. And where am I going with that? Do you remember?
Finding models, you know, how long you've been working with some of them maybe.
Yeah, so I can't use, like, for example, if this woman from Instagram didn't work out, I wouldn't use her because, and she came in for a test, and we did a test shoot to see, because she's quite short, and I wanted to see if she'd look proportionally tall without another person there. because the shoots are expensive and you can't just be nice and say, okay, let's just do the shoot and have fun. You know, it's each shoot is a part of the puzzle.
Yeah, it requires a lot of planning, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess another thing is the fashion, the dresses, the garments that you sort of adorn your models with. How does that sort of, what informs that? Where do you source that? How does that come about?
Well, there's my fashion background, okay?
Yeah.
So I do, I was an editor for 10 years. I went to Paris and Italy for the collections, and London, the States. So, I have a good sense of style, I believe. And I work very, very hard with wardrobe stylists because they come at this as the shoot is a page in fashion magazine.
Yeah.
And I'm walking that line between timelessness, classic taste. I do not want, Galliano's latest hat in my shoot, and they get very upset. And they see it as an opportunity because they're working for less than their rate to do something that they want to do. But I have to make sure that they understand the parameters of this shoot.
Yeah.
So, I work with a lot of people in the fashion business, and we try our best. And ultimately, it's not that important, but to me, it's really important. So, I'm sure that 90% of what they give me would probably have been okay, but like I said, I'm picky.
Yeah.
So I'm careful what they put in the picture, and every element that goes into the picture counts, right? Especially because it's a still picture, so you have time to really spend time with it. It's not like a moving image that wouldn't matter so much. So.
And you mentioned that the exposure time is 13 seconds?
For this, 13 seconds.
So how do they stay still for 13 seconds?
Well,
That's it seems like a long time.
Well,
but not
the
a
way
long
they
time.
did it in 1672, I bought not stainless steel, what is it called? Wrought iron plank that has a rod that goes up the center of their body, and it has clips on the neck. And that's how they stay still. They can't possibly do it otherwise. Like, I've had so many blurry shoots, so I got this clamp. I really feel weird using it, and they feel weird using it, but they don't move. They still move, but it's enough to use, so.
It hasn't discouraged anybody yet?
No.
Okay, good.
It looks like a torture device. And now it's just sitting there quietly because I don't need it.
But, it's like another tool in the bag you have.
Who knows?
Yeah. 10 years from now, you might say, hey, I know what I need in this
It's a
shoot.
great prop.
Yeah.
Or if a model isn't behaving, just get it out. Clamp it really tight to her neck. That's the other side of my personality.
Are there any other questions? We've had a couple of great ones so far.
Can you talk about kind of emotional tones, maybe that you're feeling, that you're asking the model to project, and that the viewer is taking in as they watch your work?
The emotional tools?
Tones.
Tones?
Tones, yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question, too. So emotional tones that are given to the model as a, what she should be doing for me in the frame. We have a lot of discussion about that. So then when they come, there's lots of time during hair and makeup to show her the work we've done and talk about what it is that I want from her that's different, because they don't do this, right? They pose and walk down a runway and give you a very cold stare. They're not used to being asked to act. And it's very tough. It is very tough. But like for the last shoot, for example, this model was, covering her head with a newspaper because in my mind it was pouring, right? And she kept putting the newspaper in front of her head and behind her head, and I'm going, it's raining, you know, like, so I went on Spotify and I downloaded thunderstorms music, and we just tweaked the volume as high as it would go, and she remembered that that's what it was.
Wow.
You know, she's supposed to be getting wet, and suddenly she starts lifting her feet because the studio floor was wet, you know, and we had a fan, and she let the wind blow her hair in front of her face because, of course, there's nothing she can do about it. She's outside at night getting blown around, you know. So I do things like that, you know. I also do very lame things, you know, like you've just walked out of this restaurant, you've had a fight with your boyfriend, and, you know, you're sitting here wondering whether you should actually leave or go back in, you know. So I give them little ideas of what they can do. But I find that music and very clear direction on my part gets the job done. And I was a commercials director at the Partners Film Company for about 5 years. And although I sucked as a director, I hated I hated it. It was way too collaborative. What I did learn, though, is you have to be clear. What's your intention? What do you want them to do? I wasn't very good at it at the time, but in my stills work, when it's very private and meaningful, I suddenly have gotten a lot better. So
setting is important.
Setting is important, and working for yourself is really important. Yeah. You know, when it's Kraft cheese or Dempster's bread, it's hard to get, you know, serious about it. But anyway, so yeah, that's a great question, and it's very, very important to have these models realize this is an extraordinary opportunity for them. They have to do something different, and if they don't, we'll be very disappointed, you know. So they rise to the challenge. 99% of the time, I would say always, we get a picture.
At least one.
At least one.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Don't you like my dress? Susie Roar.
What kind
Yes.
of water housing do you use for that camera?
Pardon me?
What kind of water housing do you use for that camera?
Good question. I did not, for the very first time, shoot underwater. I shot through the water, standing on top of the pool.
Oh.
Because there's no housing for this. I would have to put it in a plastic bag and take my chances.
Whoa.
And it would be impossible. It's so old-fashioned. Like, honestly, you can barely see your focus. So inside a plastic bag, I wouldn't have a hope in hell. There's no autofocus in that at all. But I just had the models under the water, and I was shooting through the water, trying to keep the water really calm so I could make out their form. But it was tough to focus. And the first day of the shoot was that huge rainstorm last summer, and my pool nearly filled up. Like, it was like a quarter of an inch below the coping.
Oh, wow.
We were watching it for hours.
Yeah.
Because our equipment, flash and everything, was underneath a white tent that kept collapsing. So we had to stay in the tent with broom handles, getting the water off the roof for
Really?
hours and hours. Yeah, it was quite a fun adventure. And the model was in the hot tub under the tent. So she was like 103 degrees and cooking. And we ordered pizza. And it came to the tent. So it was fun.
Some interesting experiences at the studio.
Yeah.
And how did you take images like through the water down? Were you standing on the edge of the pool, sort of looking down? Were you sort of like, had you constructed something?
Very simply,
Yeah.
honestly. They were in the shallow end,
Yeah.
and I was on the stairs.
Oh,
So
pretty
that was
straightforward.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the more complicated you make something, the worse it turns out. I think that you need to make it really, really simple. And, you know, by simple I mean also you have to practice a lot so that it feels easy, even though it might not be easy. But you have to just know your process really well, or you don't get what you want.
Much like this?
Much like that.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to end. Thank you
you.
very much today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.